right, this is Scatterplots, our first day of notes. So our essential question we're asking today is, what is a scatterplot? What associations or relationships are seen in scatterplots? All right, so scatterplots are graphs that uses points to show data between two variables, or we call it bivariate data. The word, that prefix bi means two. Variate is variable, so we're looking when there are two variables. So we're going to be comparing two things. So if you look right below it at positive association, you can see that we're comparing distance to time, or grades to number of absences, or shoe size to number of books read. So we're comparing two things. Scatterplots help to display if there are any patterns, trends, correlations, or associations between the variables. This can help determine if one variable has an effect on the other variable. So this is used to see if data has a relationship. We see this a lot in the real world. We may see it done with something silly, as in the more absences you have, the lower a test grade may be, or something similar to that. We may even see this in science sometimes when maybe we're talking about medication and a doctor wants to see how effective a medication is to healing something. And so they'll take a bunch of data. Usually scatterplot is a lot of data. Like these are actually a small scatterplot, but usually it's a lot of data to see if there's a relationship between things. So it's used a lot in the real world. So we do have different types of associations. We're going to use associations and correlations. They are very, very similar in meaning for 8th grade math. And so we will use those back and forth, association and correlation. They show up both in in what we need to learn. So for our purposes, we're going to talk using them the same. So types of associations or correlations. All right, so we have as one variable increased, so as this one increased, as time got bigger, our distance also got bigger. So as one increases, the other increases. This is a positive association. We see that because it's going up in a positive direction. This one's a negative association. It's going down. And so, when we see this one, we see as one increases. Our absences are still increasing. Our grade, or the other variable, decreases. And then sometimes there's no pattern at all. Like if we're comparing shoe size to the number of books you read. The number of books you read has nothing to do with your shoe size at all. So there's no relation or association observed. There's no pattern there. So sometimes when researchers do all of this study, they end up finding out, hey, these two things aren't related at all. All right, and then we have whether it's a linear or a non-linear relationship. And we have what's called a strong. And for 8th grade purposes, this is more of an opinion question on whether it's strong or weak. When you get into algebra next year, you'll look a little bit more at determining whether it's considered strong or weak. But strong, it's linear because in general, it is going in the direction of a line. There's no real curvature to it. We can even draw a line kind of down the middle of it. And we see that it's linear. And all of those dots are close to that line, which tells me it's strong. This one is a positive correlation, but you can see that the dots, when I draw a line that's kind of right through the data, the dots are kind of far away from that line, which tells me this data is in the shape of a line, but this one's definitely weaker. And just like you would imagine, the stronger it is, the more likely that those two things affect each other. So for instance, when we go back to look at this one, whatever this situation was, the data is pretty close to each other. So the time and distance are very much related to each other. In this situation, grades and number of absences are very much related to each other. But if the data is spread out, then it relates but doesn't strongly relate. Then we have nonlinear. You can see it makes a U-shaped, or this one makes a half a rainbow, I guess, an arc. The data is not in the shape of a line, although there may still be a pattern. We can see there's still a pattern here. It's still close to each other. It's not linear. It doesn't have a linear relationship. This one is a little more spread out, scattered among, but we still see there's a little bit of a pattern. So let's look at this one. We're going to describe this one, and then we're going to talk about the association and whether it's linear or not. So description. So we need to look at this. We have number of Instagram followers and days. So it looks like the more days. So here may be day 1. Here may be day 100. So we've gone up in our days. So as days increase, what's happening to our followers? So up here, we maybe had 100 followers. But by down here, we have barely any followers. As our days increase, the number of followers, I'm going to abbreviate number of followers decreased. And this association, I'm sorry, you can't see that. This association, I can see, is going down when I read left to right. So it is a negative association. But I can still see that in general, if I do it, it's generally linear. Now, I would consider that a strong correlation or association. All right, let's look at number 2. So here we have texts, number of texts sent, and their age. Well, it looks like here might be a 40-year-old, but it looks like there might be a 40-year-old over here too. So it looks like as the number of texts increased, well, let's just say in general, there looks like there's no pattern at all, right? Because my texts are all over the place. So there's no relationship between what? Let's see, between our age and number of texts sent. Now, if you need this video paused so you can get things written down, just raise your hand, let the sub know. She can pause, or he, I don't know if it's who's the sub's going to be. Let them know and they can pause the video and let you get caught up. This association, we can see it is scattered, so we're going to say there is no association. We will not be abbreviating the word association. I'll let you think about that as 8th graders, but we're not going to be abbreviating that word. Is it linear or nonlinear? Well, it's definitely not linear, but it is nonlinear. We can definitely say that it is not. It is very weak. It is not strong. All right, for number 3, I want you to go ahead and try that one by yourself, and then we're going to go over it together. I'm going to, I want you to pause this video and push play after people have finished. Please let them try it on their own. I want everybody trying it on your own. Let's go ahead and pause the video now. All right, hopefully you had enough time to actually try this one on your own. If not, pause it now. Let them try it on their own. So let's look. Our hours is increasing. So as hours increase, our number of customers. So we started down here. Our number of customers increase. Now, if you're having trouble seeing that, just look at the data. Right here, this might be 1 or 2 hours. And it looks like my hours just keep going up. But it looks like my number of customers is also. So look down here and look at your final product, and it did go up. What kind of association is it? It is going in an upward direction, so it is positive. But we can see when we connected that it was non-linear. Again, I would consider this one a strong correlation. They're all pretty close to that line we drew. And notice I'm just drawing a line that kind of goes through it. We'll practice. We're actually going to learn more how to draw these lines better. All right. I want you to do number 4 by yourself. Now, again, I want you to pause the video. I want you to write your description, association, linear or non-linear, and I want you to at least think it whether you think it's a weak or a strong. Sub, if you will pause it when everyone's done, please push play, but go ahead and pause it now. All right, hopefully you've had time to do this one and look over it. So let's see what's happening here. My temperature, so I'm starting here. It looks like it's going in a nice pattern. Temperature is lower here, and as my numbers get bigger, temperature went up. So as temperature increases, what's happening in our ice cream sales? So our ice cream sales are down here, so they're low. And by the end, they're up here, meaning they got higher. So our ice cream sales also increased. I can see when I draw a line through it that it is going to be a positive association. And it is going to be linear because most of the data went in a straight pathway. So this is going to be linear. Now, I hope you at least thought about whether you thought this was a strong or a weak. Overall, I'd probably say this is kind of in between. I would probably lean more towards a weak one just because you do want it as close to that line as possible. If we look at number 1 and 3, we can see how close that data was to that line. I hope this helps you understand positive, negative, and no associations. What you're going to do is you're going to fold this in half. Fold this in half, and it's going to get glued on in your journal. Glued on the right side of page 43 of your journal. Right side of page 43 of your journal. All right, that's all for today's Scatterplot.